The sun had barely risen when Mendes opened his eyes, staring at the peeling ceiling of his small apartment. The insistent beeping of his smartphone echoed through the room, reminding him of another day of job hunting. With a heavy sigh, he stood up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Alex, at 25, was the portrait of the hyper-connected generation. Brilliant, full of ideas, but struggling to find his place in the job market. Having graduated in computer science 2 years ago, he found himself stuck in a frustrating cycle of unsuccessful interviews and low-paying freelance work. While preparing his breakfast, a cup of instant coffee and 2 pieces of toast, Alex scrolled through his newsfeed. Headlines about technological advances, successful startups and disruptive innovations flashed across the screen. Each one was a painful reminder of where he wanted to be but couldn't get there. Another round of interviews today, he muttered to himself, swallowing the last drop of coffee. He adjusted his tie, the only one he owned, and took one last look in the mirror. The reflection showed a young man with tired but determined eyes. The subway was crowded, as always. Alex squeezed between the passengers, his laptop held tightly to his chest. It was his most precious possession, the tool he used to create codes, develop projects, and, he hoped, one day change his life. The first interview of the day was at a promising startup. Alex entered the modern building, feeling the cold air conditioning and the weight of expectations. The receptionist smiled, pointing to a waiting room full of other applicants, all looking as eager and qualified as he did. Mendes? A voice called. He stood up, following the interviewer to a glass-enclosed meeting room. The woman, in an impeccable suit and penetrating gaze, began with the usual questions. "Tell me about your professional experience," she asked, pen in hand. Alex took a deep breath. "Well, since graduating, I've been working on a variety of freelance projects. I've developed websites for small businesses, created a management system for a local NGO, and..." The interviewer interrupted him. "I see, but do you have experience in a corporate environment? Any teamwork on large-scale projects?" Alex felt his stomach sink. "Not exactly, but I'm a quick learner, and I appreciate your time, Mr. Mendes," she said with a polite but distant smile. "We'll be in touch if there's anything new." Leaving the building, Alex checked his phone. There was still time for the next interview. He walked along the busy streets, passing cafes full of young entrepreneurs excitedly discussing their startups. Envy and frustration grew with each step. The second interview of the day was no better, not even the third. At 5 p.m., Alex found himself sitting on a park bench, exhausted and discouraged. He opened his laptop, determined to at least work on some personal project so as not to feel like the day was completely lost. While coding, a notification popped up on the screen. It was a rejection email from the first interview of the day. "We appreciate your interest, but we decided to go with candidates who have more experience in the sector." Alex closed his eyes, feeling the weight of yet another rejection. When he opened them, his gaze fell on a group of teenagers nearby, all engrossed in their smartphones, laughing and sharing messages. It was at that moment that an idea began to form in his mind. What if he created an app? Something simple but useful, something you could show in future interviews as proof of your skill and initiative. With a new sense of purpose, Alex returned home. The small apartment, which had previously seemed suffocating, was now his laboratory of ideas. He spent the entire night researching, planning, and starting to code. Days turned into weeks. Alex alternated between looking for jobs during the day and working on his app at night. His diet consisted mainly of instant noodles and coffee, while his sleep hours decreased drastically. The app he was developing was a messaging service, nothing revolutionary at first glance, but Alex had some ideas to make it unique. Inspired by his own frustration with embarrassing messages he couldn't delete, he implemented a self-destruct feature. Messages would disappear after being read, leaving no trace. As the project progressed, Alex found himself increasingly absorbed. He cancelled dates with friends, ignored calls from his worried mother, and completely immersed himself in development. His apartment, once just a mess, now looked like an obsessed programmer's battlefield. Empty energy drink cans, post-its covered in codes and diagrams, and a whiteboard full of flowcharts and scribbled ideas. One night, after another round of failed interviews, Alex sat down at his laptop, determined to finish the app. The hours flew by as he fixed bugs, improved the interface, and tested each function over and over again. At 3:47 a.m., with his eyes burning with exhaustion, Alex finally sat back in his chair. It was ready. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional. With fingers shaking with exhaustion and excitement, he submitted the app to the App Store. "There," he muttered to himself, a mix of relief and apprehension in his voice. "Now it's time to wait." Alex could barely sleep that night, his mind filled with scenarios, from the app being an instant hit to being completely ignored. When he finally fell asleep, the sun was already starting to rise. The next morning, Alex was woken up by the insistent sound of notifications on his cell phone. Still groggy, he picked up the device, expecting to see the usual job rejection emails. Your eyes widened as you saw dozens of App Store notifications. People were downloading their app, not just a few, but hundreds, and the number kept rising every minute. In disbelief, Alex opened the app's statistics. The download graph showed an almost vertical upward curve. Positive comments began to appear, praising the simplicity and self-destruction feature of the messages. "It's not possible," Alex muttered, rubbing his eyes to make sure he wasn't dreaming. He spent the entire day glued to his computer, watching the numbers climb, responding to comments and making small adjustments to the app. The world outside seemed to have disappeared. Nothing else mattered other than those numbers on the screen. At night, exhausted but electrified, Alex finally allowed himself to absorb what was happening. His app, created in a time of desperation and frustration, was gaining traction. Real people were using something he had created. As he prepared for bed for the first time in months, Alex felt a twinge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something big. He had no idea how big it would be, nor the complications that would come with success. Lying in bed, looking at the ceiling, Alex smiled. Tomorrow would be a new day, and for the first time in a long time, he was eager to see what the future held. The sound of the alarm clock seemed different the next morning. Alex opened his eyes, feeling a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Before he even got up, he took out his cell phone to check the app's statistics. His heart almost stopped. The number of downloads had tripled overnight. Enthusiastic comments flooded the app's page, with users praising its ease of use and the self-destruction feature of messages. "This is crazy," Alex muttered, running a hand through his hair in disbelief. He barely had time to drink coffee before his phone started ringing. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" Alex answered hesitantly. "Mr. Mendes?" A professional voice sounded from the other end. "This is Sandra from Tech Now magazine. We would like to do an interview about your new app that is trending on social media." Alex almost dropped the phone. "A technology magazine wanted to interview you. Was this real?" "Oh, of course," he stuttered. "When? How about this afternoon? We can do it via video call." After hanging up, Alex stood in the middle of his small apartment, trying to process what was happening. His gaze wandered around the messy space, strewn clothes, dirty dishes, peeling walls. This was not the setting for an interview. With a sudden burst of energy, Alex began frantically cleaning. He washed the dishes, put away clothes, and even improvised a more presentable background for the video call by hanging a clean sheet on the wall. While he was tidying up, his cell phone kept vibrating. Notifications from social networks, emails from users with questions and suggestions, and even some messages from old college friends who had recognized their name on the app. Alex barely had time to eat lunch before the interview. Sitting in front of his laptop in a freshly pressed shirt, the only one that wasn't wrinkled, he took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. The interview began, and Alex found himself talking about his app, his inspiration, and his future. Plans he was making up at the moment, as he never imagined he would get this far. "What about users' privacy?" asked the interviewer. "How do you ensure message security?" Alex hesitated. He hadn't thought much about it. "Well, we're constantly working to improve our security protocols," he improvised, making a mental note to actually start working on this right away. After the interview, Alex collapsed into his chair, exhausted but elated. His phone vibrated again. This time it was his mother. "Alex, honey, I saw your name in an article online. What's going on?" He smiled, realizing he hadn't told her about the app yet. "Mom, you won't believe what happened." As night fell, Alex found himself in a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement at unexpected success, fear of what would come next, and a growing sense of responsibility. Thousands of people were using something he created. It was exciting and scary at the same time. Sitting on his bed, laptop on his lap, Alex began planning his next steps. He needed to improve security, expand server capacity, maybe even think about monetization. His gaze fell on the pile of job rejection letters on the bedside table. With a wry smile, he picked them up and threw them in the trash. That phase of his life was over. As he typed furiously, planning updates and new features, Alex had no idea what twists and turns awaited him. His app, born out of frustration and desperation, was about to change not just his life, but the future of digital communication. The first act of his journey was coming to an end. The initial challenge, creating something on your own, had been overcome. But the real challenges, the ones that would test not just his technical skills, but also his ethics and his worldview, were just beginning. With one last glance at the app's statistics, which continued to skyrocket, Alex closed the laptop. Tomorrow would be a new day, the first day of the rest of his life as the creator of a viral app. Whatever the future held, he was ready to face it. Laying down, Alex closed his eyes, his mind still buzzing with ideas and possibilities. The world of technology was unpredictable and constantly changing. He had created a wave. Now I needed to learn how to surf it. The sun had barely risen when Alex was woken up by the incessant sound of notifications on his cell phone. Rubbing his eyes, he picked up the device and almost fell out of bed when he saw the numbers. His app, called Whisper, had surpassed the 1 million download mark overnight. "This can't be real," he muttered, sitting up abruptly, but it was real and it was just beginning. In the days that followed, Alex found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. His small apartment, once a haven of solitude, now felt like the makeshift headquarters of a meteorically rising startup. The interview with TechNow magazine was just the beginning. Now his phone was ringing constantly with interview requests from major media outlets. Technology blogs dissected every aspect of Whisper, speculating about its potential to revolutionize digital communication. Alex barely had time to breathe, let alone process the magnitude of what was happening. He spent entire days answering emails, fixing bugs, and implementing new features that users were constantly asking for. One morning, while drinking his third cup of coffee, Alex received a call that would change everything. "Mr. Mendes, this is Robert Klein from Venture Capital Solutions. We are very interested in Whisper and would like to set up a meeting to discuss possible investments." Alex almost choked on his coffee. Venture capital investments? He barely knew where to start. "Of course, Mr. Klein. When would be convenient for you?" The meeting was scheduled for the following week, giving Alex just enough time to panic and try to prepare. He spent sleepless nights studying business terms, creating impromptu financial projections, and trying to understand what the hell a pitch deck was. On the day of the meeting, Alex found himself in front of an imposing skyscraper in the city's financial center. Wearing the only suit he owned, hastily purchased for the occasion, he took a deep breath before entering. The meeting room was intimidating. A gigantic glass table, executives in expensive suits, and a panoramic view of the city. Alex swallowed, feeling completely out of his element. Robert Klein, a middle-aged man with a sharp smile, began the meeting. "So, Mr. Mendes, tell us about your vision for Whisper. Where do you see the app in 5 years? Alex hesitated. 5 years? He had barely planned for next week. "Well," he began, trying to sound confident, "I see Whisper as the future of private and secure communication. Our goal is to expand globally, giving users a platform where they can express themselves freely, without fear of their words being used against them in the future." The next 2 hours were a roller coaster of questions, discussions, and negotiations. When Alex left the building, his head was spinning. Venture Capital Solutions was offering a substantial investment, but in exchange for a significant portion of the company. In the days that followed, Alex found himself facing a crucial decision. Accepting the investment would mean resources to expand, hire a team, and take Whisper to the next level, but it would also mean giving up some control over your creation. As he pondered, Whisper continued to grow. Users around the world praised the simplicity and privacy offered by the app. But with growth came the first signs of trouble. One day, Alex received an alarming email from a user. "Dear Whisper developer, I believe I found a security flaw in the app. It appears to be possible to intercept messages before they are destroyed. This is extremely worrying considering Whisper's privacy promise. Sincerely, a concerned user." Alex's blood ran cold. A security breach? This could be disastrous. He immediately dove into the code, working frantically to identify and fix the problem. Days passed, with Alex sleeping only a few hours a night, consumed by the urgency to protect his users' privacy. Finally, after a marathon of programming, he managed to close the gap. Exhausted but relieved, Alex released an emergency update. However, the incident left him shaken. He realized that Whisper was no longer just a personal project, it was a huge responsibility. While dealing with the fallout from the security breach, Alex received another surprising call. This time, it was from one of the biggest technology companies in the world. "Mr. Mendes, this is Sarah Johnson from Tech Giant. We are impressed with Whisper and would like to discuss a potential acquisition." Tech Giant's offer was astronomical. More money than Alex had ever dreamed of owning, but something bothered him. Tech Giant was known for acquiring promising startups and integrating them into its ecosystem, often fundamentally changing the original product. Alex found himself in an ethical dilemma. On the one hand, Tech Giant's offer would solve all of its financial problems and provide immense resources to develop Whisper. On the other, He feared losing control of its creation and compromising the privacy principles that had made the app so popular. As Alex struggled with this decision, the world around him continued to spin at a frantic pace. Whisper was becoming more than just an app, was turning into a cultural phenomenon. Celebrities have started using Whisper to communicate with fans, praising the privacy it offers. Politicians adopted it for internal discussions, attracted by the promise of communications that left no traces. But with growing popularity came new challenges. Digital rights groups have begun to question Whisper's privacy practices. Governments in several countries have expressed concerns about the potential use of the app for illegal activities. One morning, Alex woke up to the news that a country had banned Whisper, citing national security concerns. Other countries threatened to follow suit. The pressure was immense. Alex found himself at the center of a global debate about privacy, security, and freedom of expression. Every decision I made seemed to have huge ramifications. In the midst of all this chaos, Alex received an unexpected message from Whisper himself. It was from an activist in a country with heavy censorship. "Your app is saving lives. We are using Whisper to organize protests and share information that the government is trying to suppress. Please don't give up." This message hit Alex deeply. For the first time, he truly understood the impact his creation was having on the world. With new determination, Alex decided it was time to expand. He eventually accepted an investment, but on his own terms, retaining majority control of the company. With the new resources, he began to assemble a team. Whisper's first office was a hastily rented loft. Alex, accustomed to working alone, now found himself leading a team of developers, designers, and security experts. The transition was not easy. Alex discovered that creating an app was one thing. Leading a fast-growing company was quite another. He made mistakes, learned difficult lessons about management and leadership, but continued to persevere. As the team grew, Whisper evolved. New features were added, security was strengthened, and the user base continued to expand globally. But with growth came new challenges. Competitors began to emerge, trying to replicate Whisper's success. Big tech companies have launched similar features. On their own platforms, Alex found himself in a constant race to innovate and stay ahead. Each app update was eagerly awaited by users and meticulously analyzed by competitors. One day during a team meeting, one of your developers raised a disturbing question. "Alex, we've discovered that some governments are actively trying to break Whisper's encryption. They claim it's to combat terrorism and organized crime. What do we do?" The room fell silent, all eyes on Alex. It was a decisive moment. Strengthening security further would mean coming into direct conflict with powerful governments. Giving in to government demands would compromise Whisper's core principles. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about everything that had led him there. The jobless and desperate young man he was seemed like a distant memory. Now he carried the weight of millions of users' expectations, the responsibility to protect their communications, and the power to influence the future of digital privacy. Opening his eyes, Alex faced his team with determination. "We will strengthen our security," he declared. Whisper was born from the idea that people have a right to privacy. We will not compromise that, no matter the pressure. Alex's decision triggered a series of events. Some countries have threatened to ban Whisper completely. Privacy advocacy groups applauded the stance. The global press focused its attention on the young CEO who dared to challenge governments in the name of digital privacy. While navigating these turbulent waters, Alex received an email that gave him pause. It was from his mother. "Honey, I saw you on TV today. I'm proud of the man you've become, but I'm also worried. Remember to take care of yourself through all this madness. I love you." His mother's words were a timely reminder. In the rush of the last few months, Alex had barely had time to process everything that was happening in his life. That night, for the first time in weeks, Alex left the office early. He walked through the city streets, observing the people around him. On every corner, I saw someone using a smartphone, probably communicating through Whisper. The realization of the impact his creation was having on the world hit him full force. What had started as a project born out of desperation had turned into something that was changing the way people communicated globally. Sitting down on a park bench, Alex opened Whisper on his own phone. Messages from users all over the world flowed in, each protected by the technology he had created. Activists organizing protests, journalists protecting sources, ordinary people sharing secrets and intimate moments. It was at that moment that Alex realized he couldn't go back. Whisper had become bigger than him, bigger than any company or government. It was a tool of freedom in an increasingly surveilled world. With this realization came a new wave of determination. Alex knew the challenges ahead would be enormous. Government pressures, fierce competition, constant ethical dilemmas, but now he had a clear purpose. Returning to the office, Alex gathered his team. It was time to define a clear vision for the future of Whisper. "We're not just a technology company," he began. "We are guardians of privacy in a digital world. Every line of code we write, every decision we make, must reflect this commitment." The team responded with renewed enthusiasm. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly on a new version of Whisper, a version that would not only offer secure communication, but also educate users on the importance of digital privacy. Development continued. Alex received surprising news. Whisper had been nominated for a prestigious Technological Innovation Award. The ceremony would be in a few weeks, with global media coverage. Preparing for the event, Alex reflected on his journey. From a frustrated young man with no prospects, he had become the face of a revolution in digital communication. The responsibility was daunting, but also incredibly exciting. On the night of the ceremony, wearing a now perfectly fitting suit, no longer purchased in a hurry, Alex took the stage to accept the award. Looking out at the audience full of industry, leaders, journalists, and even some of the investors who had rejected him in the past, he began his speech. Whisper was born out of a basic need, the need to communicate freely, without fear. In a world where our digital lives are constantly monitored and monetized, we offer a space of true privacy. But with that power comes great responsibility. As Alex spoke, he didn't realize that his words were being broadcast to millions of people around the world. In countries with oppressive regimes, activists listened with renewed hope. At corporations, executives were rethinking their data strategies. In ordinary homes, ordinary people were beginning to question the value of their online privacy. The glare of the award ceremony spotlight had barely dissipated when Alex found himself plunged into a new reality. The speech he had given, initially intended only for those present at the event, had gone viral. Clips of his words about privacy and digital freedom circulated on social media, being shared, commented on, and debated by millions. Alex barely had time to process the impact of his words when his phone rang. It was Clara, his newly hired head of public relations. "Alex, we need to talk now." In Whisper's office, Clara was waiting for him with a tense expression. "Your speech caused an earthquake. Activists are calling you a hero. Governments are labeling you a threat to national security, and big tech, well, they're not happy." Alex slumped in his chair, the adrenaline from the night before giving way to a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What do we do now?" Clara smiled, a gleam of determination in her eyes. "Now we seize the moment. You've accidentally become the face of the fight for digital privacy. It's time to embrace that role." In the weeks that followed, Alex found himself on a roller coaster of events. Interviews for major media outlets, lectures at universities, meetings with digital rights leaders. Whisper was no longer just an app. It had become a movement, but with increasing visibility came new challenges. One morning, Alex was woken up by an urgent call from his security team. "Boss, we have detected a massive hacking attempt on our servers. It appears to be a state-sponsored attack." Alex's heart skipped a beat. It was what he feared most, a direct attack on Whisper's integrity. He rushed to the office, gathering his crisis team. For 72 hours straight, Alex and his team worked frantically to repel the attack. They slept in shifts, eating coffee and delivered food. When they finally managed to contain the threat, Alex found himself faced with a crucial decision. "Should we make the attack public?" Clara asked, her eyes tired but alert. Alex pondered. Revealing the attack could shake users' confidence, but hiding it would go against everything Whisper stood for. "Let's go public," he decided. "Our users deserve to know the truth, and the world needs to see what we're up against." News of the attack on Whisper exploded across the global media. Surprisingly, instead of driving away users, the incident seemed to strengthen the loyalty of the app's base. Alex's transparency was praised, and more people began to see Whisper as a bastion of privacy in an increasingly invasive digital world. As Alex navigated the turbulent waters of sudden fame and increasing responsibility, he received an unexpected message through Whisper. It was from an investigative journalist, Mr. Mendes. "I have information about how governments and corporations are collaborating to undermine digital privacy on a global scale. I need a secure channel to disseminate this information." Whisper is my only hope. Alex felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Helping the journalist would mean pitting Whisper directly against some of the most powerful entities on the planet, but refusing would go against everything he preached. After a sleepless night, Alex made his decision. He personally oversaw the creation of an ultra-secure channel within Whisper for journalists to share their findings. The revelations that followed shook the world. Leaked documents exposed a vast surveillance network that went far beyond what the public imagined. Whisper has become the epicenter of a geopolitical hurricane. Governments around the world have stepped up their efforts to ban or regulate Whisper. Alex found himself called to testify before parliamentary committees in several countries. At a particularly tense hearing in Washington, a senator confronted Alex directly. "Mr. Mendes, how do you justify providing a tool that can be used by terrorists and criminals to escape justice?" Alex took a deep breath before responding. "Senator, Whisper was not created to protect criminals, but to protect the fundamental right to privacy of all citizens. A free society cannot exist without the ability to communicate privately." His words resonated beyond the walls of the Capitol. The privacy versus security debate has gained new urgency in public discourse. While Alex struggled in the political and media arenas, Whisper continued to evolve. The team worked tirelessly to strengthen security, add new features, and expand server capacity to accommodate explosive user growth. One day, during a strategy meeting, one of his younger developers made a bold suggestion. What if we turned Whisper into a decentralized platform? This would make it virtually impossible for any entity, including ourselves, to access or control user communications. The idea was revolutionary and frightening. Implementing it would mean giving up a lot of control, but it would also align Whisper even more closely with its core principles. Alex spent nights debating the pros and cons with his team. The decision wasn't easy, but he was finally convinced. It was the next logical step in Whisper's evolution. The announcement of the transition to a decentralized structure was met with mixed reactions. Privacy and cryptography enthusiasts celebrated. Governments and some technology companies have expressed alarm. While work on restructuring Whisper was underway, Alex received a surprising invitation. The UN was organizing a global conference on the future of digital privacy, and they wanted him to be one of the keynote speakers. On the UN stage, in front of world leaders, CEOs of tech giants and digital rights activists, Alex felt the weight of the moment. His speech was not just about Whisper, but about the future of society in a hyper-connected world. "We are at a crossroads," he began. "The path we choose today will determine whether the digital world of tomorrow will be a space of freedom and innovation, or a mechanism of control and oppression. Whisper is not just an app. It is a statement that we believe in a future where privacy is a fundamental right, not a luxury." Alex's words sparked heated debate, but also opened doors for constructive dialogue. In the months that followed, he found himself mediating discussions between governments, technology companies, and civil rights groups, seeking a balance between security, innovation, and privacy. Whisper's decentralization process advanced, facing technical and legal challenges. Alex and his team worked day and night, aware that they were creating something that could fundamentally change the power dynamics in the digital world. It was during this intense period that Alex received news that gave him pause. His mother had been hospitalized. For the first time in months, he left the Whisper office and flew back to his hometown. Sitting next to his mother's hospital bed, Alex was hit with a wave of emotions. How long had it been since he had actually stopped to think about his journey? From an unemployed and desperate young man to a global technology leader and privacy advocate. "I'm proud of you, son," his mother said softly, holding his hand. "But don't forget to live your life too." His mother's words stuck with Alex in the days that followed. He realized that in his mission to protect the privacy of millions, he had neglected his own life, his relationships, his well-being. Back at Whisper's office, Alex gathered his team. "We need to find a balance," he said. "We can't change the world if we lose ourselves in the process." Inspired by this new perspective, Alex implemented changes to the company's culture. He encouraged flexible hours, promoted wellness initiatives, and encouraged his team to lead fulfilling lives outside of work. The result was surprising. Productivity increased and innovations flourished. As the Whisper decentralization project neared completion, Alex faced his toughest challenge yet. A consortium of large technology companies offered an astronomical sum to buy Whisper. The offer was tempting. It would guarantee the financial future of Alex and his entire team for generations, but it would also mean handing over control of their creation, potentially compromising everything they had fought for. Alex spent days agonizing over the decision. He remembered the desperate young man he was, the thrill of creating something out of nothing, the battles he faced to keep Whisper true to its principles. Finally, he came to a decision. In a globally broadcast press conference, Alex made his announcement. Whisper is not for sale. In fact, as of today, Whisper is no longer owned by me or any company. We are transferring ownership of Whisper to a non-profit foundation dedicated to preserving and promoting digital privacy for everyone. The news fell like a bomb in the world of technology. Some called Alex crazy for turning down billions. Others hailed him as a visionary. In the months that followed, Whisper completed its transition to a fully decentralized platform. Control was now in the hands of users, with the source code open for public scrutiny. The impact was profound. Authoritarian governments that previously tried to ban Whisper now faced an impossible task. The platform has become a digital haven for activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens around the world. As he watched Whisper flourish under its new model, Alex reflected on his journey. The app he created in a moment of desperation had become a force for global change. One quiet afternoon, Alex decided to do something he hadn't done in a long time. He opened the original Whisper code, the one he had written on lonely nights in his small apartment. The lines of code were simple, almost naive compared to the current complexity of the platform, but there was the essence of it all, a desire to create safe connections in an increasingly exposed world. Inspired, Alex began typing. I wasn't working on a revolutionary new project or an update to Whisper. Instead, he was writing his story, the story of how an unemployed young man accidentally created something that would change the future of digital communication. As he wrote, Alex smiled. His journey was far from over, but now he understood something fundamental. True innovation comes not just from technology, but from the vision of a better world and the courage to fight for it. Whisper would continue to evolve, facing new challenges and embracing new opportunities. And Alex would be there, no longer as an all-powerful CEO, but as a guardian, an innovator, and a lifelong learner in the ever-changing world of technology and society. When he finished writing, Alex looked out the window of his office. The sun was setting over the city, casting a golden glow over the skyscrapers. Somewhere out there, millions of people were using Whisper, sharing ideas, dreams, and secrets, protected by the technology he had created. Alex closed his laptop, feeling a mixture of pride, humility, and anticipation for the future. The unemployed young man, who had once felt lost and without prospects, was now at the center of a digital revolution. But more important than that, he had found his purpose. As he left the office, Alex received a notification on his phone. It was a message on Whisper from an anonymous user. Thank you for giving us a voice. You changed the world. Alex smiled, putting his phone in his pocket. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and possibilities. But one thing was clear. The journey that began with an app created by accident was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. 5 years have passed since Alex Mendes turned Whisper into a non-profit foundation and completely decentralized the platform. The world of digital communication had changed drastically, and Whisper was at the center of that revolution. On a sunny morning, Alex was walking through the campus of the University of Technology, where he had been invited to give a talk. Students walked past him, engrossed in their devices, many of them probably using Whisper at that very moment. Upon entering the packed auditorium, Alex was greeted with enthusiastic applause. He smiled, remembering how not long ago he was just another unemployed young man dreaming of opportunity. Welcome, he began, his voice echoing through the microphone. Today I want to talk about the power of an idea and how it can change the world. Alex shared his journey, from the accidental creation of Whisper to the challenges of protecting users' privacy against government and corporate pressure. He talked about the decision to decentralize the platform and how it had redefined the concept of secure communication. Whisper is no longer just an app, he explained. It's a global movement for digital privacy, and each of you has the power to contribute to this movement. After the lecture, a young student approached Alex, her eyes shining with admiration and curiosity. Mr. Mendes, she said, your story inspired me. I also have an idea for an app, but what if I fail? Alex smiled gently. Failure is part of the process. The important thing is to persist and believe in the potential for change of your idea. As Alex left campus, he reflected on how the world had changed. Whisper had inspired a new generation of developers and digital activists. Numerous startups focused on privacy and digital security have emerged, many of them founded by former Whisper employees. Governments around the world had been forced to rethink their digital surveillance policies. Some countries have even included the right to digital privacy in their constitutions, citing the impact of Whisper as a catalyst for these changes. Large technology companies, initially resistant, began to adopt more transparent practices focused on user privacy. The Whisper effect, as it became known, had created new expectations among digital consumers. That evening, Alex participated in a video conference with the Whisper Foundation global team. Faces from different countries and time zones filled the screen, all united by their commitment to digital privacy. "We have great news," announced Lisa, the foundation's current CEO. Whisper just reached the milestone of 2 billion monthly active users. The team celebrated, but Alex remained thoughtful. Impressive numbers, no doubt, but he knew that Whisper's true impact went beyond statistics. After the meeting, Alex opened his Whisper message box. Among the countless messages, one stood out. It was from a journalist in a country with strong censorship. "Thanks to Whisper, we were able to expose corruption in our government without compromising our sources. You didn't just create an app, Mr. Mendes. You gave us a voice." Alex felt a lump in his throat. Moments like these reminded him why all the fighting had been worth it. The next day, Alex was invited to a podcast about technology and society. The one interviewer, curious, asked, "Alex, looking back, is there anything you would do differently?" Alex pondered for a moment before responding, "Every challenge, every mistake, every victory has brought us here. I wouldn't change a thing. But what excites me is thinking about the future, about the infinite possibilities that are yet to come." At the end of the interview, Alex made a point of adding, "You know, my story is just one of millions. Every person who uses Whisper, every developer who contributes to open source, every activist who fights for digital privacy, they are all part of this ever-evolving story." While walking back home, Alex stopped at a cafe. Sitting there observing the people around him, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. From an app created on lonely nights in a tiny apartment to a global privacy movement, the journey had been extraordinary. But Alex knew the work was far from over. New challenges would emerge, new technologies would threaten privacy, and constant vigilance would be required to protect hard-won digital rights. Grabbing his smartphone, Alex opened Whisper and began typing a message to his followers. The digital privacy revolution is not a destination, it is an ongoing journey, and each of you is an essential part of that journey. Together, we will continue to shape a safer, freer, and fairer digital future for everyone. Sending the message, Alex smiled. The future was uncertain but full of possibilities, and he couldn't wait to see what came next. Dear viewer, the story of Alex Mendes and Whisper is a powerful reminder of the impact a single idea can have on the world. Just as Whisper transformed digital communication, your ideas and actions can shape the future of technology and society. If this story inspired you, made you reflect, or simply entertained you, we would like to ask two favors. Please like this video. Your support helps us reach more people with inspiring stories like this. If you are not yet subscribed to our channel, consider subscribing now. We have many other fascinating stories about innovation, technology, and overcoming to share with you. Remember, every big change starts with an idea and the courage to pursue it. Who knows, the next big technological revolution can start with you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.